Good afternoon to everyone. This is Kelly Kroger from the Advisory Board of C-Class, and I'm here today with a very special guest, Guillermo Solomon, who works for Beyond Technology. He is currently both the country manager for the US as well as the global executive director of the Business Digital Transformation. We're going to talk today a little bit about some of the really new stuff that's coming out in technology. We think that this could play out in affecting all of our organizations and our lives in the future, and how we're going to assimilate these new technologies in our day. That's the topic that's been in the news lately, and that's Neuralink, which is one of the companies of Elon Musk that's been coming up with some digital technology in the medical field that's doing some really neat stuff. In general, Guillermo, what do you think? What is your perspective on Neuralink and using some of the technology that we're hearing about recently in the news?
Well, first of all, thank you, Kelly, for supporting us for this interview. We are very happy to have you here, specifically because your profile, it's such an interesting profile in the business world, and it's an honor that you're here. So my perspective, first of all, brain-machine interface, which is BMI. It's a new technology to receive input from the brain, which is translated to operate a computer or other external device in real time. And Neuralink is a neurotechnology company that aims to create direct communication channels between the brain and computers. So Neuralink short-term goal is to help people with paralysis to restore lost functions like movement and sight. And the company long-term vision is to help humans merge with machines, enhancing the human mind. So this is totally blowing our minds right now, right? What this can be done. So initial users will be those who have lost the use of their limbs. Imagine Hawking could have communicated faster than a speed typist or an auctioneer. So that is the goal. And Neuralink says the procedure employs custom-made microscopic needles. And as the company said last October, next prior Twitter, the tip is only 10 to 20 microns in width, only slightly larger than the diameter of a red blood cell. So imagine the small size allows threads to be inserted with minimal damage to the cortex. So the implant is powered by a small battery charged wirelessly from the outside via a inductive charger that enables easy to use from anywhere. And the Neuralink approach is more invasive and high bandwidth than some competitors. The company's device is sewn into the brain surgery conducted by a robot. The chip processes neural signals from the brain and then transmits. For example, the chip could allow a person to control devices with only their thoughts. For instance, and other computer functions like neural vision, which is the opponent with a camera and a computer. The company technology could allow patients to see a triangle or a smiley face, for instance, in their first stages of development. So there are concerns as well, and people against it, as always happens in technological breakthroughs. Some researchers are concerned about lack of transparency surrounding the accused Neuralink of carelessness that has led to avoidable animal deaths, for instance. But all technologies, and even more so those that are so disruptive and can cause, as in this case, gigantic advances in technological development, but also in society and even in the evolutionary process of the human being. Of course, they carry risks and are always very subject to moral, religious, and legal debates, as was the case of cloning, for instance, and lately of artificial intelligence. I think that the technological advances are extremely difficult to stop completely, and we always end up seeing them arrive. I think that the discussion should not focus on whether these advances are good or bad, rather risks and improve their benefits. This is that today have no cure because we don't have enough brain capability or solve hunger or global warming or human equality. We could have almost no limits for what we could achieve as a species.
Thank you. No, it is clearly something that is extraordinary to think about. And I'm sure that for all of those individuals that are afflicted, who don't have use of their limbs, that now can communicate better, I can't imagine that the difference this would make in the quality of life for those folks and for their families. An amazing breakthrough, but one that's very complicated to administer, as you mentioned. And do you think that these types of technologies, which are and have been approved by the FDA for testing, do you see a time when technology would actually become affordable to the level that it could be mainstream? Or do you think this will be something that will be more elective for those individuals, not like the owner, right, to do projects and be able to pay for these types of solutions?
Of course, it's a good question. This depends, I believe, into the country's health system and massification. Regarding the first point, much of Western Europe and New Zealand, they have excellent health systems that are free for the population. And at the same time, you have the United States system. It's so expensive. And countries like in Mexico that have bad health systems so far, you cannot imagine that the Instituto Mexicano del Seguro Social or the ISSSTE will be able to do these implants in low-income people, at least in the next probably decade. The second point is when you massify a product, the price tends to drop, and mass production makes items faster, cheaper, and the larger quantity, the cheaper the product will be. The product will also have better quality and be produced faster. The production quantity has a great impact on the cost. In summary, today, I think we're not prepared so that pensioners can access this technology, and we will not be prepared in the next 10 years at least, but the country, of course, but I trust that in the future we will.
Great. And you mentioned that Neuralink isn't the only company that in investigation and research in these types of applications of technology. How do you see the landscape of competition in general, and in the market? We see more competition is always in the best interest of the consumer, both in terms of quality and in price and accessibility. Do we see Neuralink greatly monopolizing this field, or do you see that this is a field that has several players in here that could help overall the population and the consumers have more access to these types of products?
Well, Neuralink is not alone in this field by any stretch. There are companies like Paradromics in Austin, Texas, that are also conditions like paralysis or blindness, or Neurable, which is a startup that is focusing on EEG style devices to interfaces with a set of brain sensing consumer, and an even more direct competitor is BIOS, which has a similar implant technology. So there, but let me explain the three basic forms of these kind of technologies. There is invasive technologies, partially invasive and non-invasive. The electrode implants that were attached to the visual cortex will be considered invasive. Partially invasive is when an implant is placed inside the skull, but it rests outside the brain and doesn't intrude. On that scale, Neuralink will be considered invasive. For example, instead of a brain implant, there is this intravascular approach of the competition, which can restore key functioning to paralyzed patients. And it also avoids some risks that come with crossing the blood-brain barrier, such as inflammation or scar tissue buildup in the brain, stuff like that. So you could go through the veins and arteries because that provides a complete roadway to all of your neurons. Synchronous BCI, for example, they build on a stent technology that's been around since 1980. A stent, as most people know, is a metal scaffold that you can introduce into a blood vessel. It can be safely left and has been in many cardiac patients, for instance, keeping the arteries open. Synchron uses a catheter to send a stent up into the blood vessel in the motor cortex of the brain. And once there, the stent unfurls like a flower, and sensors on it, they pick up signals from neurons. And this has already enabled to restore autonomy to those with unmet medical needs today, and really unlock human potential tomorrow. You will need, as I mentioned in your first question, you will need much more bandwidth. This is the amount of information. So to my knowledge, they are the only company, Neuralink, that is currently planning a trial for statements about future non-medical applications. So to create a general purpose technology, you need to create a seamless interface between humans and computers. So you can enable enhanced cognitive and abilities. So achieving this vision may indeed require a more invasive method to achieve higher bandwidth and precision. And Neuralink has prioritized maximizing the bandwidth because that serves Elon Musk's goal of creating a generalized BCI that lets us merge with artificial intelligence and develop all sorts of new capabilities. The intravascular approach didn't seem like it could deliver as much bandwidth as the invasive approach. So that's why Neuralink is doing so. And I believe that it's the technology that it's much more promising to really have a very high impact in our society.
Thank you. It's important to also put on the table the discussions about ethics, which again, also with AI is coming out, ethics is now becoming a hot topic again, right? In terms of just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. So what are you seeing in terms of this technology and these neural implants? What could be the significant ethical or legal issues that will be debated as they go forward?
Well, there are ethical concerns about BCI technology with implants of the kind Musk is pursuing. Really allow unprecedented access to what is going on in people's brains. That could make dystopian possibilities more likely. Some neuroethics argue that the potential for misuse is so great that we need to reform the human right laws to protect ourselves before moving forward. One, on the hand, our brains are the final frontier of privacy, right? So they are the seat of our personal identity and our most intimate thoughts. So experts also worry that devices like those being built by Neuralink may be vulnerable to hacking. What happens if you're using one of them and malicious actor intercepts the Bluetooth connection, for instance, changing the signals that go to your brain to make you more depressed or say more compliant? Consider how your psychological continuity or fundamental sense of self could be disrupted by the imposition of a BCI. So the risks are indeed profound. And the gaps in our existing rights and laws are deeply problematic, and there are always behind technology. So where do I come out on the balance? Well, I'm a little bit of a tech inevitabilist. I think the idea that you can somehow stop the train and say, on balance, maybe this isn't better for humanity, and therefore we should not introduce it. I just don't see it work. People will say, wait, my brain is sacred and are so profound that I'm not willing to do it myself. But with the ways that people unwillingly give up their information all the time, and the benefits that are promised to them, I think that's unlikely. And I think we've got to carve out a different approach. So let me respond to the idea of placing tight regulations around it. Here's the thing that keeps me from going there. We have an unbelievable burden of neurological disease, for instance, mental illness worldwide. Even as our physical health overall improves, our mental health is deteriorating worldwide, and depression rates are skyrocketing. I think we urgently need to address that. And part of the that we haven't urgently addressed that is because we haven't invested in the same and put brain health and wellness on the same level as all the rest of our physical health. And I think empowering people with information to be able to take their mental health and brain health into their own hands could be transformational for those trends. So my hope is to find some way to make that possible. I think you get to decide. And I think you should be the one who decides whether or not you enhance or slow it down, or you don't do any of those things at all.
Yes, that's very exciting and worrisome at the same time, right? As these solutions become real, they offer great opportunities, but at the same time, great risk to do abuse or to use them for different purposes, right? If we're all worried today, is a very good point. Given that, and talking a little bit about where the dreams could get to, both in the positive and the negative, and I think we're seeing it even just today with conversation in the government in the U.S., with Facebook, with Instagram, with these large technology, about where is the role of government, where is the role of regulation versus private enterprise. Given all of that and what we're talking about, what do you see as the future of Neuralink? It's a private enterprise, but how do you see the future of this rolling out company? And where do you see the role of the government in some of these issues that we're discussing and managing the risk and the individual rights of the population?
Well, but let's imagine a world where, for instance, blindness or deafness can be reversed, right? Or never forget a name. I forget names all the time, for instance, or a face or a date. I'm very good with faces, but with dates and names and all that, oh my God. I do have problems, and I would love to be enhanced in that way, right? As long as I don't have the risks. So being able to increase the intellectual capacity with which we are born to download memories and correct human diseases, I think it's something that it's totally worth to have. I get very excited to see what we are capable of as a species when we put our minds into it. The fact that we are at the beginning of the journey towards mapping the human brain and potentially curing diseases and disabilities is impressive. Neuralink may not be revolutionizing PCI-specific research yet, but they are tackling the engineering feat of making it a reality. But some of what it could be potential in the future is as terrifying as it is surprising. But what will it mean if we can actually download memories or up memories that aren't out? I had flashbacks to the Strange Days with Angela Bassett and Val Fiennes. Did you see it?
Yes.
Where there is a black market for the souvenir trade, right? and the line between what's real and what's not, like a fabricated memory, really starts to blur. So this technology could be able to download our memories to the cloud and then be able to upload them to a robot or to a different human body. It could be the key to immortality, right? Or to intellectual travel, no matter how long it takes. To adapt our mental being to a body or machine capable to functioning in any environment, no matter how hospitable it is. So, like I said, this technology surprises and terrifies me at the same time for what it could mean decades from now. If we do not act responsibly and ethically with the developments of this technology today and implement appropriate guidelines and controls, we will be creating repercussions in the future that could turn into damaging waves or tsunamis. But as I said, I am an inevitabilist, and I am convinced that this is our future. That is, we take action on the matter and make the best.
Great. And things, we're talking today about a specific evolution, but really, if we look at the time that you and I have spent in our careers, the speed of which these technical advances are coming is exponential, right? We used to, when I started out 30 years ago, we used to talk about a system implementation, and once it was done, that was it for 10 years, right? And nowadays, the implementation never is complete. It's dynamic. Now we have SaaS, we have cloud. And so the implementations, the changes, the new technologies are never finished. It's now a continuum. And that obviously poses a lot of issues and a lot of challenges to organizations, to companies. Because even as a director of marketing, a director of operations, one has to be very knowledgeable about these technologies, about the potential that they can have, about the risks they can have. And all of that is very difficult for individuals that like myself that run companies that aren't that experts and that aren't 24 hours a day in these types of issues. And every day you pick up the paper. You don't pick up the paper anymore. You open the paper on your phone, I should say. There's something new. So how do you, let's give you a chance to talk a little bit about Beyond Technology. How do these specialized firms like the one where you are at, how can they help us organizations understand all of these things that are coming at us at a great speed and try to decipher what should I pay attention to, what should I not, what's important, what should I, how do we really work and get the information to help us in organizations to understand how to navigate this new future?
Let me explain how a technical or information technology consultant works. We as technology consultants and integrators, it is not the knowledge of technology that is provided, since the integrator is constantly certified in different technologies. We certify our engineers day by day in many technologies. So it's a non-stop thing, it's an ongoing thing, right? So what is provided is the knowledge of various technologies applied successfully in different areas. So nowadays, technology integrators like us are still far from developing or integrating applications for BMI. For example, restoring mobility or improving communication for nonverbal individuals applied to productivity in a factory or customer care for an online retailer, for instance. Brain-computer interfaces can be used to control prosthetics or exoskeletons, as we said. We first need to decipher the practical application in a certain line of work. Let's say operate a robot in a manufacturing line, or operate a telephone line and a CRM system to provide customer care for an online retail. And then how do we integrate this new technology to the current technology that is being used to that specific process? That will be the job of the consultant and the integrator. Another example is the health industry for dealing with neurological conditions. Treating or curing paralysis, neurological disorders, or this type of injuries could make the world a substantially better place where very few people suffer from untreatable forms of depression and anxiety, as we said at the beginning. So the technology will be able to monitor brain activity, to detect changes, indicate conditions such as, for instance, epilepsy, bipolar disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, or Alzheimer, Parkinson, all that. So, for instance, electrical stimulation could be administered to specific areas of the brain as a treatment for exhaustion, fatigue, anxiety, depression, which, unlike motor skills that are localized in one area, extend throughout the brain. So a device will have to be created together with a monitoring platform and a large system, doctor's appointment scheduler for following up, a prescription setup. So also, another example will be improving cognitive abilities is another area to develop, and this is applied to health and education. This technology can help people improve their concentration, their memory, and their attention by allowing them to train their brains through real-time biofeedback techniques. In Musk's words, the link is a kind of Fitbit in your skull with all the sensors you will expect to see in a smartwatch. So if suddenly you could capture all the neurons of the human brain and feel them all at once, what would you really do with that, right? Well, actually, we don't know. There are 80 billion neurons in the brain with about 1,000 synapses between them. So how is that kind of data interpreted? So we don't know yet, but Neuralink technology currently detects up to 10,000 of these connections, which is a significant step forward compared to the hundreds being studied in academic trials nowadays. But platforms with the proper integration, monitoring, and reporting will be crucial for this to work properly. This is exactly the field of the technology integrator, and the consultant will provide the practical side of the equation to develop the solution. And the last use case that I can think of is the connection of the brain with artificial intelligence, which is like the very last goal that Neuralink has. So imagine if a nurse in a hospital could instantly connect to the intelligent Wi-Fi network, which can locate assets in the building and know, without consulting a device, simply knowing where to look to bring that equipment to an emergency situation, for instance, the defibrillator, right? Or a doctor who, instead of using augmented reality glasses, can, with their brain, see and know what to do, because artificial intelligence communicates instantly with him and infallibly it tells him how to proceed, or gives them the least risk options of those with the highest likelihood of success. And so in a factory or mining, security, and many other applications, I see it as an accelerated step in human evolution. And for all this to happen, the expertise of many different people and companies will be needed, which means that collaboration will reach its highest point to do this work.
Great. Well, thank you. And I totally agree with you. In my experience in other industries, we see lots of technology, we see lots of tools, but the $1 million is in how you use those tools and how you apply those tools. And that is the part that is very complicated, and it takes a very specific profile of knowledge to be able to understand how to leverage and how to really get the value in the application of those technologies. And I think as we get into these more advanced and new technologies like AI, it gets even more gray for those of us in the business world to understand what to do with them and how they can help us, and not see them as a threat, but see them as opportunities. And that is where it has always been, but it will be even more important in the future to have partners like Beyond Technology and these firms that are experts on technology, that are not interested in a specific tool, but in a technology in general that can really help companies decide how, when, where to apply these things, and be aware of what's going on in their competitive set, so that their own industries don't get disrupted underneath them. So thank you so much for talking with us today, Guillermo. I don't know how well I'll sleep tonight because, again, you have presented some things that I hadn't even had in my mindset yet. Both exciting and promising and amazing, but also somewhat scary. But that's great. That is what really the next decades will be about, and it has been so interesting to hear more about it from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just as a final comment, in a brief live stream on the social media platform X, Nolan Arbog, which is the first person that got Neuralink, said that he's able to play online chess and the video game Civilization using the device. And he said it's not perfect, that is certainly not the end of the journey, but that it has already changed his life for good. So, I mean, there's a lot of things coming on, and it's a wonderful topic to talk about. Thank you so much for your help.